You shared a story with me that one day you were sat on your sofa, TV on, your head in your hands, crying uncontrollably, and you didn't know why. Take me back to that time.
When I retired from rugby, my dad had actually passed away 6 years prior to that. The feelings and the emotions I was experiencing, it felt like my dad had actually died again. After he passed away, I still used rugby as that kind of medication. I was dealing with retirement, fears around what to do next. I still, feel very fortunate that I was able to call time on my career. 17 years as a pro. Talk about realising boyhood dreams from 6, 7 years old. It is literally, pretty much all you know. My wife at the time came into the living room, and I hold nothing against her for not potentially having capacity to deal with that at the time. But she said to me, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And my response was, "I wish I knew. Wish I knew." Couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I was feeling an overwhelming sense of loss. That was when I was given an option, and that was to either seek help or risk losing my marriage.
Every man carries something: expectations, silence, struggles, the weight of having to look unbreakable. The Dad Project is a home for real, unfiltered conversations on men's mental health, the kind that have been missing for far too long. We share powerful stories and raw perspectives from those living it and those guiding men through it. Filmed at the Old Court in Windsor, it's about breaking silence, reshaping strength, and creating conversations that actually matter. I'm your host, Naroop Juti. Let's talk. Paul, you've lived through some incredible highs and some tough setbacks. What best describes where you are now?
It can only be described as on the way up.
Tell me.
On the way back, maybe.
Back from?
That will probably come up later in the conversation.
Yeah.
But not somewhere I want to go back to, that's for sure.
When I first met you, I was introduced and the gentleman said, "This is Paul Sampson, ex-England rugby player," and my eyes lit up because I'm fascinated by athletes, especially people who play at the highest level, because the amount of pressure you guys go through. And I've spoken to quite a few athletes now, and I understand the stress and the mental health challenges that they face just to keep performing at that level. And I've always watched matches, be it a penalty shootout or a really important kick after a try. What's that called?
Conversion.
See, shows them I don't know much about rugby. And I'm thinking the pressure, because they've got to nail it. They've got the whole country watching them.
Yeah.
So having this conversation with you now is like one of my ambitions fulfilled, because I want to get into your mind. I understand how you were able to have such a successful career and keep everything together, and now rebuilding yourself and doing something different, totally different, which is just as exciting in my opinion. I think it's going to be a great conversation. When I was doing some research into you, I never realized that you were actually the fastest schoolboy in the country. And that's one thing that really made you stand out in your rugby career, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess, when you're growing up and you're showing promise as a rugby player, the contract offers start coming in when you're sort of 14, 15, for when you're 16. So, yeah, I think I always knew I was going to rugby, but athletics was a passion and a love of mine. And I was quick, so it made complete sense to be continue with my athletics for as long as possible because it contributed to my rugby. And speed was obviously my main asset on the rugby field.
The rugby is something that actually ran through your family, right?
Yeah.
I know your father was a big supporter of yours, so tell me about
that. Yeah, the whole family, mum, dad were, always in and around sport. My mum was actually an English schools champion, high jump. So she would go with me growing up saying, come back to me when you've won an English schools. So I did in the end. But dad, cousins, uncles, it was all rugby league. Uncle coached and played professional. Well, it would be professional rugby league. Cousin played for Castleford. My auntie was an Olympian. So, it's surrounded. It's sport was the environment. So for me, I consider myself very lucky because sport was just part of life. Training was part of life.
So did you feel there was pressure from the family for you to pursue it?
None whatsoever. I felt pressure from my dad. It was constructive at times because he had some kind of superpower, the foresight to know that if I was to train, I would get results. And those results were anything from beating one of the boys that was bigger and stronger than me down at the track through to getting an England cap before I was 21.
Yeah.
He was calling that. So I had to keep listening to him. So the only pressure I felt was if I felt I was slacking in training, or if he thought I was slacking in training or didn't want to train, as is very normal when you're growing up, he would apply the pressure in a constructive way and say, well, talk to me after the session and tell me that it wasn't worth it. Let's just go and let's find out.
And that seems like a really, I guess there's a lot of kindness in that approach as well, because a lot of time young boys can get pushed too hard because they're actually trying to fulfill the desires of the father rather than what they really want to do. So what was your motivation that kept you going, that made you keep turning up to practice? Was it a burning desire from a young age? I want to play rugby for England, or were you distracted by other things? Tell me about that time of your life.
I think when you hit these sort of little training and competitive milestones that my dad was, so good at predicting, keeps you interested. Train hard, you'll achieve this. And when he was right, kind of keeps you going back. It's like hitting one good shot down at the golf range.
You trusted him?
Implicitly, because he proved it.
Yeah.
But then it was exciting because I was fast. Rugby was exciting because I got the ball and I scored tries. Yeah. So what's not to enjoy about it? Growing up then, I was probably a late developer and some of the other kids were getting bigger and stronger and faster. And I was like, well, I feel like I've plateaued here. And the big thing that my dad always told me, and I'm always quite mindful not to be that parent that you described earlier on, pushing too hard with my two boys, trying to keep it constructive, but trying to keep them motivated and involved and engaged in the sport. It's quite a hard balance at times, and sometimes I have to catch myself, and I'm always asking, my boys, I'm like, just tell me if I'm pushing you too much.
How do you think your dad would have responded if you had said, I just don't want to do rugby, Dad? I've lost passion for it.
He would have responded in a way that would have been about me and my potential, not about himself. That day may come for me with my boys, and my youngest is very good at golf. He's also very good at rugby, but he's a student of golf. Possibly not so much rugby, but I've also almost had to rehearse it psychologically that if he comes to me and says, Dad, I'm just going to concentrate on my golf, that'll hurt because of our journey and the extension of the journey that I had with my dad. But it's not about me.
Yeah.
It's about what makes him happy, and it'll be just a thank you for the memories, and I'll give you all the support that I can give you with your golf.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a tough one, but My dad would have been the same, I think.
Yeah, that's interesting because I've got a daughter, I haven't got a son. The same thing, there's things that I wanted for her to do, but she lost interest. And so I had to take a different approach where I thought, okay, I'll let her find her way. And whatever she likes to do, like her thing is singing and dancing. So me being the dad who's driven and ambitious, I'm like, okay, let's get you to drama school, let's get you into singing classes. And she said, Dad, I just like doing it in front of the mirror and stuff. So then you have to manage that. I think, okay, maybe she's not meant to be a pop star like her uncle, etc. But yeah, it's interesting about managing expectations and that relationship, because that can also put in a lot of pressure on that father-son relationship.
I think it changes. Well, it has changed over time. You know, when I was, I don't know what we're looking at now, sort of 10 years ago, 12 years ago, my approach to my son's rugby would have been a lot different to what it is now.
So what changed that approach?
Probably wisdom and the absolute need to see your children happy. Not about, it wasn't all about me. It was about me seeing potential and me seeing what, the capabilities, and saying, well, but I have got the hangover of, I know how I used to train. My environment was so different to what they have now. So for me, training was a part of life. It wasn't a chore. It was some days, but training was beating someone else in a race. On a track, you get a buzz from. It was going round somebody on the outside in rugby, you get a buzz from. So, I can't expect, because it was all sport and we had less options and less distractions through, other means that the kids have today. That was kind of all we did. There was a car park where I used to live. It was tarmac, but I had sand as a kicking tee before they made kicking tees like they used to do in rugby league, of sand to kick the ball off to practice your conversions. For hours and hours and hours. Kids just don't do it. They kick a ball down at the club, maybe before training or after training for a few hours, and
that's it.
That is it, really. It's not a pastime.
Yeah. So
the environment's changed, and I can't expect my kids to train like I did.
So you were actually at school when you got selected for England, weren't you? How did that feel? Being in a classroom and knowing that you're going to play for England, how did your friends treat you? Well,
it was a training squad, and I've got to thank Jack Rowell, sadly no longer with us. But he was, I think, it was a maverick move. I'm not too sure. I was never going to play for England that weekend. I think it was against Wales. But certainly gave me a platform. Would I want it to happen again? No, but I don't regret that it happened either.
Why would you not want it to happen again?
At the time, I was completely unprepared for that. I didn't have the resources to support me.
Like what?
Well, an agent. Or, I was at school, and it was quite funny, actually, because I was in school. I was called into the headmaster's office the week before for something completely different. I was in a little bit of trouble. And then I got called into the headmaster's office again. So I had to find the correct jumper that we were supposed to be wearing. So I had to change my shoes, borrow someone's belt, and then back to the headmaster's office. I thought, I can't think what I've done wrong this time. That's how I thought all the time, by the way. I was terribly misunderstood. But and then he delivered the news. He said, never in my lifetime as a headmaster have I been so shocked and inundated with phone calls from press and one thing or another. I said, what's happened? He said, you've just been called into the England squad. At the time, I was waiting for hopefully some news about the under-19 squad. And I was like, oh, good. I'll be, like to be down at Castlecroft or where. He said, no. He said, the full England squad. And I was like, what? Why? Well, I don't understand this. So obviously, you wouldn't have cared about the tie, the belt. The news crews were at the school in a matter of hours, and I was on the school phone, trying to take calls from Nike, Mizuno, Adidas, and
that quickly.
Yeah, and I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know how to behave. I was playing. I think I played for school maybe the following Saturday, and Trevor McDonald, it was news at 10. I got one of the bongs on news at 10. So it was,
So you were 17.
Yeah.
Getting calls from Nike, all these sports brands.
Yeah.
Press within hours.
Yeah.
And you find out you're going to play for England.
Mm.
What do you think they saw in you? The England squad, the England manager?
I think a bit of promise. He knew my speed. I mean, it was quite funny when I did turn up to training. A few people in rugby know this. It's been documented a little bit, but in true Jack Rowell style, he was walking down the big staircase at the hotel, the Petersham in Richmond, and he was walking, and I was watching. He's a big man as well. He got down to the bottom step and he held his hand out, and he said, "How are you?" I said, "Fine, thanks, Mr. Rowell." He went, No. Who are you? So I was like, brought me back down to earth very quickly. But that was his style, that was his humour. It was too much of an amazing, how can I say it? It was an amazing experience, but it was just an experience. It was, I was never going to be in a situation where I was going to be playing. But, the only thing I would change about it is to have the resources to be able to deal with it better psychologically and practically, and have, a bit more of an agent at the time. I would have liked a bit of notice. Yeah.
So that night when you went to bed, right, and you come back from school, excited, mum and dad must have been over the moon.
Yeah.
You get into bed, put your head on the pillow. What was going through your mind? Were you thinking, okay, my life is going to be amazing, I'm going to be famous, I'm going to get to live out my dreams? Or was there fear?
There was definitely no fear. But what there was, possibly from memory to my detriment, and not in a bad way, I dreamt of playing for England, like most 6-7-year-olds that are on a rugby field one day. And possibly to my detriment, similar to how I felt when I got my first cap, I worked very, very hard. I was training nearly every day. Again, didn't feel like training. It was a way of life. It wasn't all a chore. I wasn't just running myself into the ground psychologically going, I don't really want to do this. I was kind of enjoying it as well because I was getting results.
Yeah.
But I probably felt wrongly a sense of relief. And I felt that after my first cap. Whereas other athletes with a different mindset may have felt, now the hard work starts. I was never going to be in a position to be let off the training hook, as it were, because later that year then, I would have signed for Wasps. But even then, that meant that I wasn't on the track as much. If I'd have stayed on my own training regime, I think I would have been, apart from maybe the gym stuff, the weightlifting and resistance stuff, then obviously that goes hand in hand with professional rugby that needed to start. But it was interesting. It was almost like a relief and kind of, right, I'm here now. Let me enjoy it.
It was 1998 was your debut against South Africa, right?
Yeah.
And so when you went out on the pitch, on the field for that first game, how did you prepare yourself mentally for that?
It's an interesting question because I had no preparation. we were in the off season for the summer.
Right.
I was disappointed that I wasn't on the initial squad that went out.
Yeah.
On what ended up being the Tour of Hell. In your off season back then, you generally were, you down tools, boots get hung up for a good few weeks, and you go on holiday, you relax, you drink, you eat rubbish, whatever. Only then to be called completely out of the blue by Clive Woodward to say, we need you in South Africa. And I was like, well, you don't turn it down because you haven't prepared.
Yeah.
But there wasn't the kind of the care for players, as well as the education and as well as keeping tabs on players, you know, if you first reserve these days, you know, if you're in line, you think you're in line, you're gonna look after yourself just in case this happens. For me, it was like, oh, I'm not on the initial squad. I'm not in the initial squad to travel. So, okay, I'll do what we'll do.
That's some fun.
So I was at a friend's house, and someone popped their head through the door, and I was asleep, hungover, and didn't shake me to wake me. It just said it through the door. Clive Wood was trying to get hold of you, and I thought I was dreaming because I heard it in sort of half sleep. And then they said it again, and I'm thinking that sounded a little bit too real. So I was sat up and then asked my friend, and they said, someone's trying to get hold of you. I was like, oh my God. So it wasn't the best preparation.
And how did that match go?
Well, it was in about 3, 4, maybe even 5 inches of water some parts of the field. There was torrential rain.
Wow.
Not great for me. Speed is my main asset.
Yeah.
Phenomenal occasion, first cap, you know, at Newlands in Cape Town. But just wished it had been different.
Yeah.
Wished it had been a fast track. Wish we weren't off the back of getting absolutely humped everywhere we went. But, you know, forever grateful that Clive Woodward gave me my cap.
Yeah.
And, you know, and gave me an opportunity. Although I thought it was a little bit overdue, personally. But, you know, and then again, my dad was right. I got my cap before I was 21. So
one thing I've always, I guess, wanted to experience or get insight into is when you go onto a pitch or field, if you're in football and rugby, and you've got thousands of people watching you, and you know the cameras are on. Do you automatically just shut that out? Are you aware of being watched? Or when it's game time, does it just everything just disappear?
Well, I think that's how we were told and how we were conditioned. And then you see someone like Henry Pollock these days playing for England, constantly looking up at the big screen, doing his hair, and it's like, how's he getting away with that? Yeah. You know, but I don't know, I think there's a lot more emphasis on enjoying the rugby these days. Right. And a lot more encouragement to just express yourself. Right. On and off the field, you know, both in terms of even literally just off the field as you're waiting to come on as a substitute. It's changing as long as you're doing what's needed to be done on the field. Yeah. So, but for me personally, no, I mean, the pressures that I was putting myself under, that constructively my dad was putting me under in training from being 7, 8 years old, you know, relative to the age, you know, we wouldn't talk about TV cameras back then, but, you know, certain pressures that might relate to the pressures that we perceive would affect us on a match day when we're 20 turning out for England. It's not there. You know, looking in as an outsider, you might think it is the expectation of 50,000 people. But you're conditioned to enjoy that. Yeah. You know, and that's exactly what I did.
I think there's been so much written about you which has celebrated all your wins and everything that you've done. With this conversation, I really want to tap into the challenges. So I think for our audience, understanding as an athlete, as someone who's played at the highest level, how you were able to work through those challenges is where the real value is. On our first conversation, you told me about all the injuries and the setbacks you've had and how you had to work through those. Tell me a little bit about the operations, the injuries, how you were able to come back time and time again, knowing that, okay, I'm not be playing now for 6 months. And you've got to sit there and look at everyone else enjoying their rugby, celebrating, winning. Yeah. Tell me about those experiences.
I think when, as you mentioned, setbacks, and this is probably the first time it's, you know, that I've had this opportunity to talk about them, I think it's important for me to make it really clear that, that they are setbacks. They're my setbacks. I'm never looking for sympathy. You know, I'm not doing this to get a sympathy vote. I want to share in case, what I didn't realise that they were potentially as important, significant setbacks as perhaps I do now in retrospect, because I've always been of the mindset, we just have to just keep going. We go again. But the more emphasis, and rightly so, that we're putting on significant events, potentially traumatic events, whether they feel traumatic or not, it's, now it becomes more relevant. And as I said, if they help someone, then great. But injuries, no professional rugby player signs a contract without expecting to get some injuries. Well, I did. I signed and thought, I'm going to be bulletproof. So, yeah, 14 operations, which is not so common, but it's not completely uncommon, throughout my career. And consider that every operation needs at least 6 to 8 weeks out. In a 17-year career, that's a lot of time out of the game. The worst injury was my left knee playing for England in Dubai. When the whole knee came out, it wasn't just a dislocation of the kneecap. It came out almost out the joint, a bit like that. So for that split second where there was no pain and he puts the leg back in, I was like, am I good to go? Back on, it's like, the physio knows I'm out now, that for a considerable amount of time. And then the pain hit. And I was out came back after about 9 months, 10 months. And then the meniscus went in the first game. So I was out for another 2. So nearly a year out of the game.
How did you manage during that time, knowing that you're not doing the thing that you love to do? What was that? What did that feel like?
Looking back, it was brutal. At the time, you're going through the process. You're trying to hit the small milestones of, rehab. You're trying to get your knee straight in order to get back on the field and do it all again. It's mind-blowing what we sign up to do, really, when you look back on it. For me, it was, what am I going to do about my speed? Because that's my main thing. We hear about a knee going and it's like, well, no chance of getting your speed back. And what does that leave me with? I wasn't the biggest. So...
was there loneliness there during that time?
Yeah.
I can imagine, because who can understand what you're going through?
It's horrendous. Again, I think, depending on the person you are, you will approach that very differently. I was probably a player that needed a bit of an arm round. Other players see it as, however they want to see it. When you play a bad game, I was probably the player that needed an arm round. Other players see it as an opportunity, bounce back. I can't do anything about that. I can't, I would now if I knew then what I know now. But at the time, it was, you're on your own a lot. And, Wasps at the time, I believe, did everything they could. But if they look back at how they handled things and people and players, they do it really differently now. So we're all in a learning process, all on a steep learning curve at the time. Rugby hadn't been professional for very long. Didn't have all the resources they have now. Didn't have all the feedback, the intel that they have now, on player welfare. So, coaches were so different in how they approached you. Warren Gatland, so different to a Nigel Melville, but that's just Warren Gatland doing his very best, in my opinion. Just because I wanted something different didn't mean to say that he had to give it to me. So yeah, there was some really challenging times throughout the career, but you just kind of think, well, yeah, you've got the benefit of being with a group of guys that have got you back. You've got a lot of benefits in order to mask the issues.
When you said you're the kind of person that needs to have an arm around you, what would you have wanted?
think for me, I don't know. I think it's got to have something to do with the relationship I had with my mum and dad. But obviously more prevalent with my dad because the connection we had through sport. Sport was my life. And just that kind of, well, you know, everything's going to be all right.
Someone to talk to, just offload with.
Yeah, I think always constructive, giving me confidence. But, you know, again, without the understanding that that's just my mismanaged expectations of other people. You know, yes, it goes on more in sport now because we're more aware of what different players of different players' needs.
Do you think a lot of other men in your team suffered with the same kind of, I won't say suffered, but wanted the same thing? They wanted someone to talk to, but you had a bunch of big men.
Yeah.
Ain't no one going to sit there and put their arm around you and have a conversation.
Yeah. Again, I'm not saying this for sympathy.
Yeah.
You know, this is just as we unravel it and look back.
Yeah.
That's clearly what more of what I needed. Something like the relationship with my dad. My dad was up north and lived at there, albeit he was down at every game with my mum. But that's probably why, you know, I was very sensitive to being dropped. I'm very sensitive to, you know, sort of not getting picked when somebody else had a bad game. You know, it's that sort of, you're missing that connection of everything will be all right. And there is obviously the element of, you have, in professional sport, you're a young man. You know, I'll say it now, you still have to kind of just get on with it a bit.
That's the interesting thing about sport is that they're professionals, but they're still really young.
Yeah.
Like you think of someone who's 23, 24, the amount of development they have to go through as a man yet, right? I'm 44. I think about myself when I was 23, a kid. I knew nothing about life. Completely different person.
Yeah.
But yet you add in fame, you add in money, you add in attention, you add in all these things. It's so hard to keep a level head. And just because you're famous, right, doesn't mean you don't suffer, right? You're doing what you love. You're playing rugby. You're not doing it because you want the fame and attention. You're doing it because you love the game.
Absolutely right.
And then when you need someone just to have a simple conversation, but everyone thinks, look, you're doing amazing. Why is this guy even worried about it? He's playing, he's living his dream.
Yeah.
People don't get it that you're still a human.
Yeah.
You still have your basic needs of comfort, reassurance, someone to talk to. And it's just, it wasn't, like, especially at your time, it wasn't understood, was it at all?
No, it wasn't. And even if there are no answers, no clear-cut answers, it's the opportunity to say, just talk about how you're feeling. What I will say is that I was living the dream. I was very fortunate. There's players that I played with in the 18 England setup and the 19 England setup that never signed a professional contract or that got an injury. So I reflect with a huge amount of gratitude. Yeah. I also am fully aware that if someone had come to me and said, how are you feeling about this and is there anything I can do? I would probably be, the ego would have kicked in. Good, not a problem, I've got this. I have got this. In actual fact, when I was out for a year, I did. Because the helpful part of the ego was just spurring me along, going, I'm going to get it back. People have doubted me, and that was enough. So I was never, there was parts of me that were never in doubt. And then there was, just that little bit. It's like, I wanted to defy all the odds and prove people wrong. And you need an ego for that.
Yeah. One thing that you shared with me that really impacted your life was the death of your father. Tell me about that time.
He'd been poorly for 6 years prior, and he was 73 when he passed. But how could I describe it? It was horrible. I mean, he'd been poorly on and off.
And how old are you?
28 when I lost him.
Mm.
But it's something that I was petrified of, actually.
Of losing him.
Since I was a kid, because all the other dads were a lot younger. I was, he had me through his second marriage. And, all the other dads were a lot younger, and then you'd hear something on the news of someone passing at 55, 60. So I'm like, how long have I got with him? And maybe that helped form a bond, but, it was always on the back of my mind. When I was a lot younger, I did used to cry myself to sleep on occasion. I remember it because my dad was older.
Wow.
And I was like, when, for a very brief moment when he did pass, I felt a sense of relief. I was like, what is that about? And it was because I didn't have to worry about him going. So
what was the fear when you said you used to cry yourself to sleep?
It could be gone tomorrow.
And for you, that would mean the loss of your hero?
Yeah, absolutely right, yeah.
Mm.
And I don't know, I know my dad was tough on his other kids when he was younger. But I definitely got the best part of him. He mellowed, and there was an unbelievable bond between us. And it was evident for all my friends to see. I was very lucky.
Yeah.
I was very lucky that I had a dad that was so committed to his kids. Not so easy on my sister because she didn't play rugby. But, it was a phenomenal bond.
Yeah. So you lost your dad at 28. How did that impact your rugby?
Again, wish I'd known then what I know now, because it had a huge impact. I was offered to go and I think maybe even trial with London Irish. I'd had a rough time at Worcester. I was from some of the injuries that I had, especially the knee. I was told that I wouldn't be re-signed at the end of the year at Wasps. So me and my ego was like, right, I want to be out now. I want to go and prove myself at another club. So I went to Bath. Bath accommodated me for another year, but again, I joined them and I hadn't had a pre-season, so I wasn't fit. So I didn't surplus requirements there at the end of that year. Worcester then took me on. Again, still hadn't had a decent pre-season. That was my first one after the injury, I think. Didn't perform anything like I knew I could. And then I lost my dad, and then I said no to London Irish, which was a really bad move.
Why did you say no?
Because I didn't think, I had a bad time at Worcester with the decisions of one or two of the coaches, or their conduct. And I thought, if this is what rugby's become, then I'm out. I'm done. In the time I'm losing my dad, didn't think there was any help or understanding and consideration for what I was going through. So I thought, I kind of had a real bad taste in my mouth about rugby in general, and declined the offer of talking with Irish, which was a big mistake. And well.
Do you think there's a little bit of self-sabotage there?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. But also a lot of ignorance, in that I just thought, I just need some time out of the Premiership. I need to go and play rugby to enjoy it again. So there was the self-care aspect. And I went to Blackheath and just played and got some money. Huge cut on my wage. I wanted to try and rediscover the fun that I had for the game. Thinking then, well, I'll just come back into the Prem when I won. Don't know what I was thinking, but ended up signing at London Welsh, good social club at the time. With a view then, London Welsh was always a club that was well connected for work and jobs after rugby, but only if you wanted to wear a suit, really. And jobs for the boys when you finished playing rugby back in that era was predominantly, selling oil, brokering, insurance, whatever, but it wasn't me. So, but anyway, London Welsh, then we started to compete in the division below the Premiership. And we then, the club turned full-time. So it gave me the sort of the second coming of that full-time rugby environment that I thought was done and dusted when I signed for Welsh, which, as I say, was a good social club. And then I started to sort of get that buzz again. Played 5 years in the end, I think, 4 or 5 years at Welsh, no injuries. I was looking after myself. I was one of the older ones. I was the fittest. Body fat was the lowest. And I was enjoying this sort of second coming of professional rugby. And then the year I retired, we got so far, I'd taken myself so far, decided to retire from rugby. But then that next year, London Welsh got promoted. So we're so close. And to be part of that whole change of the club was a privilege. And I played over 100 games for Welsh. And really proud that such a great historical club, I'm still the top points, the top try scorer there. So,
oh wow!
So it was a nice thing to leave on, really.
So I guess that leads us nicely into life after rugby, which is what I wanted the second half of the podcast to be about, because so much happened.
Yeah.
And it's where I meet you now, right? You shared a story with me that one day you were sat on your sofa, TV on, your head in your hands, crying uncontrollably. And you didn't know why. Take me back to that time.
That was, it was a morning where I would normally be going to training. So I think I'd retired and the season was, or pre-season was just starting to, pre-season for rugby was just, beginning, and I wasn't there. I'd retired. And it was a Monday morning, and I remember it so clearly, and I couldn't understand, well, when I retired from rugby, my dad had actually passed away 6 years prior to that. But the feelings and the emotions I was experiencing, it felt like my dad had actually died again, or that he'd just died. Because I think finishing rugby and retiring from something that I've done for so long, to have a connection with my dad through my rugby since I was 7 years old. After he passed away, I still used rugby as that kind of medication, that tonic, the internal dialogue, his voice. So when I gave up rugby, it felt like it was a new, the connection between my dad had gone again. So I was dealing with retirement, fears around what to do next. And as I say, fortunate, I still, feel very fortunate that I was able to call time on my career, 17 years as a pro. But it's not just as a pro. We talk about realising boyhood dreams from 6, 7 years old. It is literally, pretty much all you know. And your routine in the day and connections with the other players and, fighting for a common goal. So that Monday morning was brutal because I couldn't really, my wife at the time came into the living room, and I hold nothing against her for not potentially having capacity to deal with that at the time. But she said to me, "Fuck is wrong with you?" And my response was, "I wish I knew. Wish I knew." Couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I was feeling an overwhelming sense of loss. So, that was when I was given an option, and that was to either seek help or risk losing my marriage.
Sounds as if, like you said, rugby kept your mind busy. It kept your dad alive. To you.
Yeah.
And I can totally understand you're facing a point now where all the things that you've known have gone. Life is forcing you to adapt and change. There's uncertainty, challenges in your marriage. Very, very difficult time. Something I can totally relate to. You were given an ultimatum by your wife at the time. And you made a choice to go to therapy, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Was that a difficult choice to make?
No. Unfamiliar, territory. It was because therapy in those days is not a common thing. That was like, I remember the feeling, get help, what does that mean? What does that look like? What exactly, what do I do? But when given the option, without considering what, the fractious nature of the marriage at the time, it was, I'm doing it anyway. I'm in because, you want to save. you do what you think is right.
What did therapy help you to understand about yourself that you didn't know?
That I was a good person.
Why didn't you not know that before?
I didn't feel I was reminded, but also
that's interesting. You didn't feel that you were reminded by people around you?
Yeah, potentially, yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah, I think it allowed me to feel heard. It allowed me to feel that my feelings were validated and that they shouldn't be shut away, or that I wouldn't be pushed away because of them or ridiculed. So to have that connection with Lula Benz, who was amazing. Don't get me wrong, there's some parts of the therapy that, like, reliving certain things and talking about my dad a lot was horrendous. I didn't really enjoy that part at all, but it did allow me to open up and express myself, and also feel that there was more of a life after rugby, because that's not something I could actually get my head around at the time.
What you said there was really powerful. You said, I didn't feel that I was heard, and that all the therapy made you feel that you were heard and that your feelings were valid. Right? Now, you talk to most men and you ask them, do you feel like you're heard in your family life, in your relationship? I guarantee most of them would say no. Not heard as in you can hear my voice in the house,
No.
really heard from the heart.
Yeah.
This is what I'm going through. This is how I feel about life.
Yeah.
This is what life is making me feel. These are the challenges I'm facing. Where is a space for a man to say that? And then for feelings to be validated? Like, how many men know how to express their feelings? You can probably count their feelings that they can say on one hand: happy, sad, angry, depressed, anxious, stressed. Like, there's so many feelings, right? If you hadn't had that therapy, what do you think would have happened to you in your life without being able to be heard and express?
Well, you said in your life, I just don't know how it would turn out. I think the most dangerous place I've ever felt is the relief and the overwhelming sense of relief that actually I can get out of this, I can check out.
Of life?
Yeah, and that wasn't a voluntary thing. It was almost like a light bulb moment. You're in the depths of despair And then you get this, I've got a bright idea. I can save everybody else. And that's why these kind of thoughts should be carefully considered when it comes to other people that we hear in the news, even in recent weeks. You know, Manny from Stone Roses and Ricky Hatton. You know, sometimes as wrong as it is, as inaccurate as it is, that was a dangerous place to me, where I felt better because I wasn't a burden.
I'm just going to process that, because there's so much depth to that. And you talk about men, when they think about taking their life, it's because they think they're a burden.
100%.
That's so sad, isn't it?
Yeah. It's inaccurate.
That can literally make me cry, because you think that's how little you are valued or heard by the people in your life, that you think you're doing everybody a favor by not being here.
Absolutely right. But it's a bright idea at the time.
And that's something that's a bright idea. I've got a great idea.
Yeah.
If I just do this,
yeah,
everyone's happy. It's genius.
Absolutely. It's not a case of, you know, you're not thinking of the common train of thought is that selfish on your kids, which is still, you can still respect that view. But what I must also say is that what were my expectations that everybody around me, even my wife, should have the capacity, that should be equipped.
Yeah.
So I was also a victim of my expectations. You know, I was a victim of my expectations as well. In that,
they're not grand expectations. Like, if you're with people, if you're in a relationship, in a family, you would hope those are the people that could give you that love, give you that emotional support. Yeah. I mean, if you can't get that from those people, who are you going to get it from, right? So they're not expectations I think are wrong.
No, but
that's where you found yourself.
Just to consider now, if I'd have known then what I know now, I wouldn't have been in that situation.
How would you have handled it differently?
Well, I see everything completely differently now anyway. You know, everything is the same with the lowest point, where the better light bulb moment of, why is everyone else not experiencing retirement like me? Well, that's obviously because of my connection to rugby, because my meaning making around rugby has got trillions of influences over the years. Predominantly my dad, which we've spent a lot of time talking about, and family, security, love of the game, enjoyment, playing for your country. They're all my meaning making, but why is everybody else not suffering? Why are some people good? Why are some people finding it harder than me? Because we all have a unique attachment to whatever we're struggling with.
Yeah.
So if it's unique, completely unique for every single individual, it's mine. It's my attachment to rugby that's making me feel. And it's a psychological attachment. It's not real.
Yeah.
Not that tangible. We can respect it. But if I've got myself in this, let's call it a mess for now, or this misunderstanding that I need rugby in order to live, I can understand that deeper and get myself out. So that was the proper light bulb, and that's when I really started to do a lot more reading and become a lot more interested and fascinated by psychology.
Right.
And it's attachments, respectfully, but that's all it is. So that's how I would have dealt with it differently.
And I want to get into that part of your life shortly, but one thing you did share with me is how people tried to almost taint who you are and who you are as a man. And you told me the story of this journalist, who approached you to write a piece on you, and I was blown away when you shared that story. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it was during COVID, and I don't know how he got wind of what I did. Maybe through some other press article, but got a phone call, and he's teeing the conversation. He's a freelance journalist. He was teeing the conversation up like he wanted to do an interview and approach men's health, talk about what I was doing, and we're talking. We talked maybe 3 times in total. Every so often, sort of in the latter stages of the third conversation, it was, oh, is that how you and your ex-wife dealt with things, and is that the problems that you maybe experienced? I thought, he'd got my trust. I hadn't done my due diligence. I don't have an agent, then he dealt with. He'd obviously been away, written something up, and he dealt with the blow. He said, men's health, can't get it into men's health, so I'm putting it in the Sun newspaper. I was like, that's not really. I said, anyway, can I read? And he sent me it, and he'd written it up like an exclusive. I was talking about my ex-wife.
Yeah,
I've been offered many times the opportunity to share my story about my ex-wife, and it's never interested me. She works in the public eye. She's working very hard, and she supports my 2 boys, predominantly because of my financial situation. So yeah, she'd be forgiven for thinking that I've done something, but for what was a constructive piece about dealing with a lot of tricky situations for people during COVID, that was used to line his own pockets. Basically, I never got paid for the piece, and it was going to be a nice piece around me developing as a coach, helping people during tough times. And then he ran it out in the Sun as an exclusive, which again was massively upsetting and could potentially have an impact on how people would perceive me. So yeah, not great.
So that must be very tricky for you, because obviously you're trying to manage the relationship with your ex-wife.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't want to say anything bad to your kids who are involved, which is the most important thing.
Mm.
So reading that, how did that make you feel?
Oh, completely betrayed.
And what did people say about you? Did they change how they treated you?
Well, I'll never know, because if somebody's taking a view on it, it can affect your professional career. It can just affect how you looked on. I've been nothing but devoted to the best of my ability to my 2 children for obvious reason, because I still miss my dad and I still miss that connection. Then, whoever influenced the sex of my 2 children. I have 2 boys, and it couldn't be any better.
Yeah,
I was in my element, because I then got to better appreciate what my dad was experiencing with me.
Yeah.
So that's been so important to me to try and nurture the relationship with my ex-wife.
Yeah.
There haven't, always kind of will be upsets along the way. We have had times where we've met on holiday in Spain and done a changeover with the kids there, and we've spent time together there, and we've she did the London Marathon, so I took the boys up to watch her complete that. There's been a lot of meals, the kids' birthdays that we've spent time, as a family, which is important, regardless of who she was with or who I was with. It was important to keep that going forward for me, and important for the boys. It's not, we're not doing it for any other reason. We know, all cards on the table. It's not to, not, we may never be the best of friends again, but the fact that you show up and you get on for the children, it is and kind of was massively important to me.
I want to ask you a question which I don't know if it will be challenging, but it's important because I've had to experience it. So you come from a family where your parents were married together, very supportive. And I can imagine they were your blueprint for how you would raise your kids. Same with me. I'm also divorced, single dad with a daughter. Never thought that would happen to me. How did you feel when you knew, okay, my marriage is coming to an end now. My dad was my hero. Your mum was massively supportive to you.
Yeah.
My kids are not now going to have the same parental structure I had.
Yeah.
How did you process that? How did you deal with that?
I definitely wanted to make sure that I'd done everything practically that I could do.
What did that mean?
Well, I think when things were starting to, become more and more fractious between us, bearing in mind I'd been given a bit of an ultimatum to say, get to therapy. I was reaping the benefits. I was starting to process things. I was starting to understand things and understand myself better. I thought it'd be a good idea if we went, myself and my ex-wife went. She declined. And I couldn't understand that. Again, my mismanaged expectations. I take responsibility for feeling disappointed that she didn't want to do therapy because, as we all know, you got to have a readiness for therapy. I was hugely disappointed that for the sake of our family and what we had, especially with 2 children, that it's not something that she wanted to do. So,
do you ask yourself why she didn't want to do it?
I don't think too much about it. It was just a case of, at the time, she just didn't have the readiness to open up. I felt it would have been an opportunity for somebody impartial to challenge me or give me support, but someone impartial. My family are up north. I didn't have anyone to bounce off. I didn't have anyone to talk to but with my ex-wife and her family, it was, heavily in favour.
You feel isolated? Did you feel alone?
Massively isolated.
Difficult place.
Yeah, I felt very isolated since I moved down here. Since I was 18, at certain times. But it's what you do. I've got kids down here, and never really had the opportunity to be back up north, but it's just the way it is.
You come across as a very protective, devoted father, which I know you are. I've met you a few times now, and I've seen what kind of man you are. And you were sharing with me this sense of what a father gives to the children in order to feel like he's a provider, right? And part of your story is that you went through a difficult financial stage. Okay, you were conned out of money. And you said because you weren't able to give enough to your children, you felt you were being judged as a father and as a man. When we know there's so much more to being a dad than just how much money you can give your kids.
Yeah.
Right? You felt like that was something that was held against you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Again, there may be some assumptions on my part, because my boys are very lucky. They're privileged. And I try to, in the right way, try to remind them, keep their feet on the ground, and they go to nice schools. It was always my dream to be in a position to support them. My dad got me through private school. God knows how he did it, but mum and dad, obviously. But this time last year, August last year, having conversations about bankruptcy following this fraud that I was subjected to 6 years ago. So, like a lot of dads, my ex-wife was a breadwinner. No issues with that. But what was discussed, and the reason why I just put a few things on hold, was because the formula that was going to work was that I was going to be around a little bit more for the boys, while she was in a very good contract at Sky Sports at the time. That's fantastic. But then I had properties. So my ex-wife was bringing in a good income, but I had foundations for our retirement or mine, in other ways, in assets. And, it was a formula that didn't work in the end. But yeah, when you've got two children going through their teens, you want to give them as much opportunity as possible. But opportunity to also just be father and son. It's not always about using money to be on holidays or even paying for school fees. I'm forever grateful that my ex-wife has supported the boys. But it's only what we do as parents as well.
Mm.
I would have loved the opportunity to be that person, as a dad, as a provider, as, one that supports. But when the breadwinner who earns a lot of money that I would probably rarely be able to compete with, it's just...
But that is only this moment and right now. We don't know where things are going to be in a year, in 2 years, and being a father is a lifelong commitment, right?
It is.
So things can change.
They can, and I'm just thankful that I've got a great relationship with Jude. Going through some temporary issues with Oscar. I say temporary because I got hope.
Yeah.
But I can't help but think that a couple of the influences as to why we're having a couple of problems right now might be because of my financial situation. So...
How do you process that?
There's no processing. There's a living with. There's a getting through every single day. And I've been through enough trauma to know what I said earlier about if I'd have known then what I know now. Well, I'm exercising that now on a daily basis. I deepen my understanding of what I'm experiencing. What I'm experiencing is just a formless energy and lack of... When it's upsetting, it's a temporary confusion. He's fine, he's happy, he knows he's loved. He's chosen a path at this point in time. That's all it is. Whereas I could make a lot more meaning into it, missing his 18th birthday, missing his Christmas, missing him finishing his school, his A-levels, and his prize-giving day, and they're just my attachments to him through what I've experienced, an amalgamation of experiences that were so rich for me with my dad. Why should I, what gives me the right to think I'm going to experience exactly the same with mine?
Yeah.
We hope. But I'm the one that's creating the disappointment.
There's a lot there for me to take from what you just said, because I also have certain hopes for my daughter, and she's starting secondary school, and she's not going to go to the school that I'd hoped. So I went to private school from 3 years old. I had certain ambitions and hopes for her, but due to certain situations, she's not going to have the same path or follow the same path I did. And then you're right, I felt for a few days, I won't say disappointment, but not disappointment in her. Maybe I was feeling the responsibility on myself that I wish I had done more. Maybe I'd studied more with her. It would have helped. If I'd got extra tuition, she would have passed the exam, etc., etc. Then I realized that was my attachment to how I was treated and what I did and I achieved, and that her path is different. Then who's to say what will happen in 3, 4, 5 years' time? Who's to say what she will go on to achieve? And this was always how her life was meant to unfold.
Absolutely.
And that gives me comfort that I can't control everything.
But I think also, if you can imagine dropping into her mind and seeing things through her lens, she's not experiencing the disappointment that you are.
Yeah.
She's just happy.
She was happy. She was happy.
She's happy, but that's a sort of a made up sort of little tool trick of the mind. It's like, when we think that, when we're experiencing something, we're experiencing our own attachments, we're experiencing our own disappointments. But you drop into their lens and they're just seeing things as they are through their lens. You say, oh, what's all the worry about? What is, what's the concerns about? Why am I putting myself through this? They're happy. And that's actually fundamentally is all we want, for our kids to be happy. So I've had to do that a few times, get, shut of my stuff and consider more what they're experiencing.
I really enjoy talking to men like you because I like to understand a man's journey. I like to know that a man's lived a life of challenges and has rebuilt. For me, that's a movie. That's what you watch movies for. A man has a goal, and throughout the whole movie, he's going to be challenged and broken down. And does he end up achieving his goal? And what I find really fascinating about you is your outlook on life now. So I can imagine you as a youngster. I want to play for England for rugby. That will set me up. I will live this life. I marry a woman in the public eye, have 2 kids. You can imagine where your life was going to go, and that hasn't happened. Same with me, right? My relationship, my marriage. But this is where we were always meant to be. And the man that you are now, I find is a fascinating man because you have so much depth of understanding, and I can see exactly why you are now going to be a therapist. And I actually think this is probably your true calling, to be honest, and your greatest years and your greatest impact is yet to come. So I'd love to know a bit about your journey as to why you decided to train as a psychotherapist.
Well, I do have a lot to be grateful for because obviously it was my ex-wife that insisted I went and got therapy. I met with a lady called Lula Benz who I decided to work with, who's brilliant and still in touch with today. Probably towards the end of our working relationship, she said you'd be a good coach. Not necessarily psychotherapist because with my background in sport, it would relate more to performance.
So a coach is in a performance coach?
Performance coach, executive coach. Yeah.
Right. What's the difference for those who don't understand between a coach and a psychotherapist?
Well, a coach is probably more, it is more geared towards somebody's working life, the professional life. Whereas psychotherapist is obviously talking about whatever the client wants to talk about, but it's quite often clientele is going to be people that are suffering from serious issues, addictions, suicide ideation, marital issues. It comes really into the personal a lot more than the coaching does. But coaching is then talking to people that are very good at what they do, that want to be even better, which aligns with, my sport and my background. But as it happens, it seems to have come full circle a little bit. And, I am training as a psychotherapist, where I use those skills, whether that be still at the performance end of people's careers, objectives, lives, whatever, then who knows at this point. But it's exciting times, looking forward to continuing my studies. I've been studying in some capacity for the last 8-9 years anyway, maybe even 10, in human performance, in lots of different models and approaches. So, yeah.
When I first met you, it was at Roehampton University. And you said to me, Naroop, when I started this course, I had £80 in my account. How did you even give yourself the motivation to think, I've got 80 quid in my account, but I'm going to study to do something as opposed to just give me anything I can do to make some money? To still have the foresight to think I need to actually do something of impact that's aligned with what your therapist said you'd probably be good at. Talk to me about that time in your life.
Well, I've made some interesting decisions over the years. I'm not entirely sure who in their right mind would say yes, but it was a huge opportunity. Practically, it was a non-starter. I think maybe trusting the universe, we hear it a little bit too much and it might be wrongly used. But I was just trusting something, some higher power to get me through. The opportunity was too good for me to... I'd sooner start something and then realise I can't do it in this context. Because I want to work. It's as simple as that. I've been dying to get into structured work. I've struggled since retirement from rugby to really find the platform in order to be able to express myself and my working ability. There's been distractions, as there always is when you finish playing rugby at 34. Different offers come in, different interests look appealing, but you can waste a lot of time and you can react from your ego of what appeals to certain parts of you that probably aren't sustainable. So it's taken this long, really, for me to feel really comfortable as a non-academic with 80 quid in the bank to go, okay, I'm going to do a master's.
What stopped you from taking some of those opportunities at 34?
Well, I did take some of them that don't come to fruition because they've got, the idea of making them work has probably come from the wrong place. Businesses, but the amount of conversations I've had about setting up a new business, it would blow your mind. And it's all been a waste of time. But
because they want your name and face?
They want your name, your black book, the people that you know, more than me. I can offer something, but my black book's probably worth more without a skill set. Sports management was another one. I love the idea of being involved in a young person's career. Perhaps again, from the experiences that I've had as a young sports person coming up, seeing what's maybe lacking. But even then, it was more about the psychological impact. The stuff that my dad gave me was probably, one of the catalysts for that. I didn't want to be sat with a rugby coach or a director of rugby, all of which I know now because they're players I played with and against, talking about a player's worth. That wasn't me. I didn't want to be an agent. I wanted to be involved in young people's careers and help, mentor, guide, whatever that is. But yeah, that was the appeal. But you get sort of dangled a carrot, and as ex-rugby players, without that kind of education and that understanding, it's like, yeah, take you up on that straight away because they're talking a language that appeals to you when you finish playing rugby.
But not all of those carrots are good carrots, are they? A lot of them are rotten.
Well, as I found out.
Yeah. What do you really care about now as a man? What is the thing that drives you the most, would you say, to keep pushing? Because you're moving through the storm, but the storm is still feel it, right?
It sounds sentimental, but I don't mean it to be, but it is the relationship with my boys.
I think that's what the right thing is, right?
Yeah, because I feel that I've not had as much of a connection with them as I would have. It didn't all work out the way I wanted it to because of my financial situation. I wanted them. We eventually split, worked out that we were going to split the time 50-50 with my ex-wife. Fantastic. I've not, in the last 4 or 5 years, it's not been anything like that because I've not had the money to put in my fuel tank. Never mind have a home with them. So I have to change my understanding around my expectations and how I wanted things to work out, and look forward. It's all it's all I can do. Not too far forward, but get through university, graduate, and then hopefully it provides me with more opportunities to. But 15 and 19 now, and time's pressing on.
You're a brave man for being so open about where you were at certain times of your life and where you are now. And I know how much of relationships mean with your boys. If you could speak to your older son, if he was sat here right now, what would you say to him?
If I could speak to
your older son, if he was sat here right now, what would you say to
him? A good question. Perhaps it'd be something along the lines of, I'd love to know if he knows how much he's loved. I'd just go, yeah. Knowing Oscar, he'd be just, yeah. But I don't know. It's.
Do you think our children, because women and mothers can share love so easily, and men, we do too. We hug, we say it. But do you think the children feel it in the same way when we say, I love you? Like, do they know?
Of course they don't.
Because as a father, that means not just I love you, means there is nothing I won't do for you. Like, if a car's coming this way, it's me who's jumping in front of it. Like, it's layered with so much emotion. 3 words, I love you.
Yeah.
And it's not their job to understand at that age. But how do we as men, I guess, help them to feel it more?
I don't know. There's no right or wrong answer. I mean, I just think, we can think we can shower them with materialistic things. And whilst sometimes it's important if you have the option to do that, I won't say important, but we do it. It's more important for us than it is for them. Gives us a sense of well-being. But all you can be is there, and remind them that you're there. I know every time I want to send. I mean, I rang Jude not that long ago, and I just said. He said, "What?" I said, "I just thought that I should ring you and tell you I love you." And naturally, he took the piss. I said, "No, I tell you at the end of every phone call." He says it to me, you say it to him, but it just becomes, the end of the phone call. But I thought, just going to tell him, see what his reaction is. And his reaction was exactly as, but they should know. They've got to know. He's to this day, he's 15. And every time, I want to, you bring your kids up, you try and bring your kids up to be polite and say thank you. And after every meal that I cooked, he would give me a hug. I'd be maybe at the kitchen sink washing up, and he'd come up, both of them, would come up, give me a hug, say thanks for dinner, Dad. It could have been a slice of toast. Thanks, Daddy. It came home to me not that long ago, walking out of Nando's, and I got this arm across my shoulder. Gave me a massive, hug and a kiss. He said, "Thanks, Daddy." I was like, still doing that. Still doing the thank yous.
It means a lot, though, doesn't it?
It does. Little things. They don't get it, and I wouldn't expect them to. And they don't get it because the love that I have for my kids has got everything to do with my dad.
Yeah.
But they haven't walked that line. That's what goes into. That's the beauty of why I'm trying to be that, so they're like this for their kids. So yeah.
I think that's so true. How your father loves you is how you love your kids. Because my dad is an amazing father and one of my role models, but he has difficulty expressing emotion.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes where I would hope he may say something, I can feel block. Not that he doesn't want to say it, but his dad never showed him the love so openly for him to see what it's like and feel it. Right. I don't have the understanding of showing it to a son because I've got a daughter, but I know I've got nephews. I still, I'm my brother's son. I always hug him. I love you, Ari, when he's on the FaceTime, and he's like, "All right, man." Like, but I just love saying it. For me, for boys, it's like a different thing. But as they get older and turn into a man, can you still say it the same way?
Yeah.
Can you still hug a 44-year-old man and say, "I love you, son"?
Yeah.
Is it still as easy? Do you feel?
They don't get a choice.
Yeah.
You know, as I said, with Jude, he doesn't get a choice. If I want to hug him and kiss him, that's what he gets.
Yeah.
But what I will say is that I hope that, and I always I've brought them up to know that I'm only trying my best as a dad.
Yeah.
It might not be perfect, but my God, and the same for their mum, who's had her own problems. We're all trying our best. I hope to God that they're an even better dad than I can be, because I've got my conditioning and the way that I was brought up, which was full of love, in a very different environment. I grew up in a pub on the outskirts of Bradford, and you know, I was exposed to different things, and life was just different in terms of, you know, looking after yourself. And there's so much. They will be better dads. You know, they will have a better perspective on certain things. They will make better choices. But there's nothing I want more than for them to, you know. But I've always been open. I've always said as well, don't trust everything I say. In the respect of, it's, you know, I'm doing my best. I will advise you. I'll help guide you as best I possibly can. But you've got your own minds. So, you know, it's it's not easy being a parent.
Yeah. So as we come to the end of this conversation, what's one thing you think we should have spoken about that maybe we haven't?
You invited me here.
about your life, about something that you may want to have spoken about, you know, what our mission is, what we're doing, men's mental health, or something that's really important to you that you think we should have discussed.
I think I said it at the start. I'm not doing this for, and maybe that's just the oversensitive nature of me a little bit, that I'm not doing this for any sympathy. I'm incredibly grateful for everything that I've experienced. You know, probably this time, say 2 years ago, 18 months ago, I was spending too much time sleeping in my car. Not lots, but enough, you know, because I wasn't able to afford the petrol to get back to where I lived. But I knew I had to be in this area, coaching kids. Too proud to admit that at the time. So, to what now is working and being involved in a company on Harley Street. You've got to ask the universe for help sometimes. Maybe this doesn't quite answer your question as to what could we have talked about, but the only reason, as I said, I'm not looking for sympathy. The only reason that I'm opening up about this is because I'm seeing the effect that it can have on other people. And I've got to stop being so fucking selfish. My pride, ego, it's like my profession. Like, no, I can't do that because I'll make a reason to not talk about it. But I admire all these other people that are finding strength, and I'm okay talking about it. It's just, I don't want people to think I'm doing it for, you know, other reasons. I'm not doing it for sympathy. I'm doing this because if a small part of what I've said can help someone else, then that's possibly all I needed. That's possibly what got me off the hook a couple of times when things could have gone really nasty and not rational. We don't all have, but too many men have had certain thoughts that are, and I can vouch, temporary confusions. Respectfully, bright ideas, and it's inaccurate. It's momentary, and things can turn around, but asking the world for help, meaning using that word again, it's overused in this space, the vulnerability. Pick where you want to be vulnerable. Be choosy. Pick a therapist, a counsellor, a mate. Choose, you don't have to tell the world about how you're feeling. It's just a case of sharing something. And when you share, and you develop a bit of a connection with whoever, or you've already got a connection with a friend, it's the connection sometimes that you're missing. These thoughts come from quite often the unhelpful part of our ego, because we feel that we have let someone down. But if you drop into their lens, they're not seeing it the same. We feel we've let someone down because of our attachments to success, our mismanaged expectations of ourselves, our ego. And they're all inaccurate. So if we can, this is why I'm big, certainly, and I want to work in this field, because there's so much around the psychoeducation that just enough to get someone off the hook.
Yeah.
Do you realise that's your ego? That's what you think you want to be. That's who you think you are. None of us are who we think we are. That's the facade. We're all the same.
I think that's beautifully said, man. There's something when life breaks a man and forces him to reforge his identity, that he actually finds out who he truly is. When everything's stripped away from you, everything you believed in that you thought made you is taken away, then you understand who you really are. And I had this definition of courage. Courage is taking a step in a certain direction, not knowing the outcome. That's courage. I mean, you don't know where it's going to go, but you're gonna walk that way. And even though you've had so much success as a rugby player, I actually respect you more for how you're rebuilding your life now. For being so open about where you found yourself and what you've done now to move forward. It takes huge bravery and huge courage. And I can see where your life's going to go, because you're a great man to talk to and you're inspiring. Very easy to understand. I've shared stuff with you off camera. This is your calling, man. This is where the impact's going to happen. This is where the real work is going to, take effect. And you'll impact loads of lives in a positive way. And being on a podcast is one of them. I know you shared stuff with us, but you haven't shared before. You've done talks with us now at events, and more will come. So I guess I just want to say thank you. I really, really do. I appreciate you being here and sharing so openly. And you are a perfect role model for men. And give them the permission to be open, because you've got every right and every reason not to, based on how people have known you. Yet you have. So if you can do it, there's no excuse. I want to say thank you, man. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you very much.